We've all been in a position where the bite is on something we have zero knowledge about or zero confidence in. If you felt this way about jerkbait fishing, then get ready to get dialed in on jerkbait fishing. I have more confidence now in jerkbaits than ever before. I will be exposing mistakes that might be sabotaging your jerkbait fishing. Stick around to the end of the video because by the end, you're gonna be dialed in and have a ton more confidence when it comes to jerkbait fishing. We're gonna be covering 6 mistakes that you should be avoiding in your jerkbait fishing. It's gonna level up your jerkbait fishing. It's gonna help you catch a lot more fish on a jerkbait.
But man, the jerkbait is destroying them right now. So cool.
So real quick, before we get into that jerkbait fishing, I want to talk about Waterland fishing optics. When I'm filming this video, it's April and the spawn is on all over the place. They're spawning out in the desert right now. They're spawning probably here locally as well. And what you need when they're spawning is awesome polarized sunglasses. And that's where I turn to my Waterland fishing optics sunglasses. I've got the Hybro frames with the blue mirror lenses right here. And I got the Slaunch frames and the green mirror lens right here. Both of these are awesome lenses. I wear the Hybros out on the town, at work, just driving around the car, and then I'm wearing these Slaunches a lot on the water and off the water both. This is a great pair for both. If you're looking for something specific to bed fishing, then you're definitely gonna wanna check out those bed fisher frames with that honey mirror lens as well. It's gonna help you see those fish in the water and help you catch those bed fish this bed fishing season. Head over to the waterlandco.com website, use discount code LUNA15 and it'll save you 15% off. The first common mistake that we're gonna be talking about is retrieve speed and having the wrong gear ratio when it comes to your reel they're using for jerkbait fishing. Using the wrong retrieve speed is gonna dramatically cost you fish when you're jerkbait fishing. You're gonna have to play around with that retrieve speed. Sometimes you're gonna wanna move that jerkbait really fast, and other times you're gonna wanna move it very, very slow. In the wintertime especially, that's when you're gonna wanna move that jerkbait really, really slow. If you have the luxury of having forward-facing sonar, a lot of times you're gonna be able to see what those fish are doing and how they're reacting to that jerkbait. A lot of times you're gonna be able to play with that retrieve speed and see what that fish is doing, and if you have that luxury, then that's something you definitely need to key into in order to see what those fish want. Sometimes they're just coming up real slow, and that's when you're gonna wanna slow that jerkbait down. Sometimes they shoot up really fast and they want that thing moving, and they go and attack that jerkbait. Now, when it comes to gear ratio reels that I'm using with my jerkbait fishing, I'm gonna be using a 7:1 gear ratio. I feel like that's kind of right where I wanna be. It's not overly fast to where I'm always over reeling my jerkbait and I'm moving it out of the strike zone too fast, but it's also something that I can slow down and keep in that strike zone as long as possible if need be. I've been in situations where they want that jerkbait moving fast, and I've been in situations where they want that jerkbait moving really slow, and that 7:1 gear ratio is ideal. The specific reel that I'm using with my jerkbait fishing is going to be the Daiwa Tatula SV TW in the 103, or it's gonna be the newer Tatula 100. I really like both of those reels for the jerkbait and that 7:1 gear ratio. Both of those reels are gonna cast those smaller, lighter jerkbaits very well, and you're gonna be able to put enough line on that reel as well to be able to make those long casts. So mistake number 2 that we're gonna be talking about is the wrong rod action. Most of the time you're gonna be having a too stiff of a rod if the rod action is something that you're having issues with. If you have too stiff of a rod, you're gonna be pulling those treble hooks out of the fish's mouth when they do bite, and then you're also gonna be missing out on a lot of bites that you could be having by having that softer tip rod. If you're fishing a rod that's too stiff, then you're gonna end up not getting all the action that you can out of that jerkbait. It's gonna be dragging that jerkbait through the water rather than getting it to really snap back and forth, which is what you want with jerkbait fishing. When you have that stiffer rod tip, it drags that bait because the rod tip doesn't have enough give to really allow that bait to get that darting action that you're looking for out of a jerkbait. You're basically just pulling it. You're gonna get a little bit of that movement, but it's just not gonna be as pronounced as you can get with that softer rod tip. So the specific rod that I like to use my jerkbaits is the 7.2 Sensory from 6 Sense. Really like that rod. It's super sensitive, it's super light, and it has that tip that is perfect for jerkbait fishing. That 7.2 might be a little bit long for some of you guys. A lot of people like to use a 6.9, 6.10 when they're jerkbait fishing. I found that 7.2 is perfect. Gives me a little bit extra rod to be able to make those casts really far with forward-facing sonar, or when you're just trying to cover water and find some fish. But if you're jerking that rod and you're hitting the gunnel of your boat or you're hitting the water, then you might want to downsize it to one of those 6.9s or 6.10s, which is a lot more common when it comes to jerkbait fishing. So mistake number 3 that's very common with your jerkbait fishing is not varying your retrieve and not varying your cadence with the jerkbait. A lot of times, if we go back to that forward-facing sonar component, you're gonna be able to see how those fish react with the different cadences, and you're gonna be able to pick up what they want a lot sooner. However, if you don't have forward-facing sonar, still fish a jerkbait, but you just gotta play around with that cadence a little bit more. And when I'm referring to cadence, it's how many jerks you put before you pause and how long you pause. It could be a longer sweep, or it can be real sharp jerks, or it could be a little bit softer. That's the cadence that I'm talking about. It could be a jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, pause, jerk, 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 pause. And then those pauses also change the cadence. The longer the pause, the longer the entire thing takes to get through that entire cadence. Now, every fish can be different, but there are days where you're gonna go out there and you're gonna find that cadence, and those fish are gonna react to that one cadence much better than other ones. And then there's other days where you just gotta mess with it all throughout the day and just catch the particular fish the way it wants to eat. Now, some things to remember when it comes to cadences, especially in the wintertime: slower tends to be better. I've had days where I've been out on the water and I'm literally counting to 15 and just letting that jerkbait just sit there in the water. And at the very end of that 15 count is when that fish comes up to eat the bait. And if I would have jerked it too soon, that fish probably wouldn't have eaten it because it was so lethargic that it didn't want to actually come up. It decided to eat it because it was an easy meal and it was just sitting there in front of its face. Other times you're going to fish it a little bit faster, especially now that we're fishing jerkbaits all throughout the year. The warmer the month is, the warmer the water temperature, a lot of times you're going to be able to get away with moving that jerkbait a little bit quicker. So I've discussed 3 out of the 6 mistakes that we are going to be talking about with jerkbait fishing. I've listed out a few different products that I recommend you guys use when it comes to jerkbait fishing. I want to bring your attention to the description of today's video. I've listed everything out in a product list that is down in the description, along with links and discount codes. Make sure to take advantage of those links and those discount codes because it's going to save you guys money and let those companies know that I sent you. One of my discount codes is Luna10. It's going to save you 10% off all your 6 Sense products, whether that's going to be a rod that you want to get or some jerk baits. I really like the 97X and the 106X. Those jerk baits are awesome. They also have deep divers available in both of those, and I've caught fish on all of the jerk baits that 6 Sense sells. You know, if you're looking for that forward-facing sonar stuff, then you might want to go with one of the slow sinks, but I'm really partial to those deep divers because our fish are in really clear water out here, and a lot of times you got to get them a little bit deeper, so that deep diver comes into play big time. So mistake number 4 that we're going to be talking about is inappropriate line size. Generally speaking, I'm going to be using 10-pound tests when it comes to fishing a jerkbait. Just feel like that 10-pound test allows me to cast it really well on casting gear, allows that jerkbait to get down, and it doesn't impact that side-to-side action that I'm really looking for with the jerkbait. The line that I'm going to be using on my jerkbait setups is this Pro 100 from K9 Fishing. K9 is one of my sponsors, and I've been using their line this year, and I'm really happy with it. Caught some fish on the jerkbait using this line, and it's held up really, really well. Now, if you want to get that bait up in the water column, you can go up to a 12-pound test or something like that, but you might be sacrificing action out of your jerkbait. Now, if Pro 100 or the 100% fluorocarbons are a little bit out of your price range, K9 Fishing does have their copolymer, which is named Fluoro, and I would recommend that in the 10-pound test as well. That one's not going to sink quite as much. It's going to have a little bit more buoyancy. It's going to have a little bit more stretch than your Pro 100, but it's going to be very, very castable, and I think you'll be happy with it, and it's a great price point as well. So their website is k9fishing.com, and I have a discount code for them. It's Luna10 as well, and it'll save you 10% off your line. I can't stress enough how important line size really is to jerkbait fishing. The lighter you go, the deeper that jerkbait's probably going to get, and that more of a side-to-side action that you're going to get out of your jerkbait. It's going to perform better. Now, if you're going lighter, then you might need to go to a spinning rod in order to cast it really well. Some of the BFS bait casting setups might be ideal if you're going really light on that line, but I'm generally going to be that 10-pound test. Occasionally, I might throw it on 8 if I'm using a spinning rod or something like that. If it's really, really windy, then I'll go to a spinning rod because you can bomb cast those jerk baits in the wind with a spinning rod really well. And a lot of times those spinning rods have that light action rod tip, like I mentioned earlier, and you get really good action out of your jerk baits. But if I can get away with it, I'm going to be throwing casting gear if possible. The next mistake that I want to talk about is overlooking clear water techniques, which is matching the hatch. A lot of times when you're jerkbait fishing, you're gonna have some good water clarity. A lot of times that's what gets that jerkbait bite to actually be as good as it can be. Jerkbaits generally aren't as good in dirty water. However, I have heard of people catching fish on jerkbaits in dirty water, but generally speaking, it is a clear water technique. Now, what I mean by matching the hatch is you wanna pick baits that mimic shad colors, mimic bluegill colors, mimic perch colors. You want to be mimicking the forage that your lake has, so that way you can get those fish to come and commit to that bait as best as possible. If it's clear water, they're going to be able to see that bait. So the closer you can get it to the actual forage look, the better. So if you have darker bluegill that they're feeding on, then you might want to go with that bluegill color. If you have perch in your lake, then you might want to go with that perch color. If you just have shad in your lake where they're not on the bluegill, then you might want to go with more of a shad pattern. A few of my favorite colors are Milliken's Matte Shad, the Milliken Ghost, Pro Blue Scales, Shad Dawn. I really like all those colors from 6th Sense. A lot of them are available in both the 97 and the 106 models, in the shallow and the deep. Those are some of my favorite colors that I throw all over the place. So the final mistake that we're gonna be talking about in this video is not paying attention to your hooks. You need to pay attention to your hooks, because if you don't have super sharp hooks on a jerkbait, you're missing out on fish. The 6 inch jerkbaits come with really, really good quality hooks. I believe the 97 has number 6s on it, and the 106X and the other 106 models have size 4. They come with great hooks. I don't change them out when I'm fishing them right out of the package when they're brand new. But eventually, if you've caught a lot of fish on that jerkbait, maybe you've run it through some rocks or run it through a brush, or it's just old, maybe they rusted in your tackle box, you're gonna need to replace those hooks. And in order to do that, you're gonna need to go buy some treble hooks. A couple of models that I really like are the Victory hook in the 31340 and the Victory hook in the 30101 models. The Victory 30101 model is your short shank common look treble hook, and those things are sticky sharp. They're gonna replace those trebles that you already have on those hooks, whatever the jerkbait is, and they're gonna be ones that you can count on when that fish bites. The next model hook that I wanna mention from Victory is their 31340 model, and it's got their V-lock style bend in it. That V-lock style bend just keeps those fish hooked, and when it comes to changing out trebles on my jerkbaits, that's the one that I'm gonna go with next. One of the best places that you can go to get your Victory hooks is the Do It Molds website, and I've got my affiliate link to the Do It site down in the description of the video. One thing I recommend when it comes to treble hooks is go and get them ahead of time, so that way you have them, because you never know when you're gonna bend that hook out. Maybe something happens in the tackle box and they rust up, and you need to replace them, and it's game time, it's tournament time, and you need to replace those trebles because that is the jerkbait that they're eating. So go out there, get some Victory hooks, get some size 6s, get some size 4s, and it's gonna cover you on most of your jerkbaits. Jerkbaits can be incredibly productive throughout the year, but by far they come in huge when that water starts to cool down. Avoid the mistakes that I listed out in today's video. And if you wanna watch me catch some fish on a jerkbait, make sure to click on the video that's on the screen right now, and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.